Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Nandini, your host for the evening, and welcome to Innovative Possibilities Season 3. Before moving on, I'd like to give you a brief intro. So Innovative Possibilities is a series that has been put together to have conversations around the world of branding, the world of design, and all sorts of innovations that are happening in the design industry. So the theme for today's webinar is the business of branding, where we'll be talking about what it takes to build successful brands and what the future of branding is going to look like. So some of you all have been in the branding industry for quite some time, and I'm sure you have noticed that the world of branding and the general approach to branding itself has evolved quite a bit over the past few decades. So it becomes really important for all of us to have conversations as a design community, to learn from each other and help each other equip to embrace the future of branding. So in that spirit, we have with us industry experts who will share with us their experience on the business of branding for us to learn and gear up. Now, before I head on to introduce our guests, I'd like to tell you all a little bit about how this session is going to pan out. So first, we're going to have our guest from VGC, that is Preeti Vyas and Rahul Vijay Kumar, talk to us about the business of branding. And post that, we're going to have Ashok Pava from HP Indigo extend his views and thoughts on the same. After that, we're going to open up for a Q&A, where we're going to answer all your questions that you'll have about branding, the business of it, that you'll want us to address. So do keep dropping in your questions in the Q&A section so that we can pick it up towards the end. All right, I'd like to introduce our first guest, Preeti Vyas, who is an artist, a designer, and an entrepreneur, and who founded VGC in 1997 and steered it over the last 2 decades to the top position in India as an independent design and communication consultancy. Preeti has created some of the most iconic brand stories and is counted amongst the most influential women in India in the field of design and communication. She has also been invited to be on the jury for the Cannes Festival twice and the New York Festival, to name a few. And as a thought leader, she has curated the program Designomics for Bloomberg and has been on the advisory council for several prominent design schools like Parsons School of Design and MIT School of Design. And as a very recent feather on her cap, she's also been conferred with the Women Disruptors Lifetime Achievement Award 2021 by Ad Gully. Our next guest, Rahul Vijay Kumar, currently heads the business at VGC and also the overseas strategy team. Through his career that spans over a decade, he has been invited to speak at various colleges and universities across India on design thinking and entrepreneurship. And he's worked with several renowned brands, including IISc, Manipal, Future Group, to name a few. Now, before I hand over the stage to our very eminent guests, allow me to introduce VGC Consultancy. Founded by Preeti Vyas in 1997, today Vyas Giannetti Creative is one of India's most recognized and sought-after consultancies. With offices in Mumbai and Bangalore, VGC has served clients across India and the world for over 2 decades now. Some of the clients, including Aditya Birla Group, the Times Group, Linen Club, House of Hiranandani, Taj Hotel, the Ritz-Carlton, and this is just like a handful full of them. What truly makes VGC a top design agency is their 4-step process to design called Designomics, which is rooted in design thinking to enhance brand equity in a holistic manner. Now I'm going to fade into the background and invite our guests, Preeti Vyas and Rahul Vijay Kumar, to share their ideas with us.
Thank you, Nandini. Thank you so much for that introduction.
Thank you, Nandini. That was quite an introduction. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to go ahead and introduce us a second time, if that's okay with all here. We are VGC, and of course, there is no VGC without Preeti. Preeti founded VGC way back in 1997, and through 25 years, in fact, we're in our 25th year as we speak, 2022. Through 25 years, we've been building brands successfully, I might add, and we've also always believed in letting our work do the talking for itself. And Preeti has had a very interesting journey into the business of building brands, starting as an artist, traveling the world, and then working very leading creative teams at Trikaya Gray, to eventually starting off on her own, bringing her vision to life of creating an integrated strategic branding, design, and now digital consultancy. And through this all, she's also been able to, very actively be involved in the Indian design education space, spearheading, several programs, as well as curating our very own program that also shares the name Designomics. Apart from that, she's been on several eminent juries and festivals all across the world. She's been named the 50 most influential women by Verve magazine, by Impact magazine. She's also been named as one of the 25 most powerful women in Indian business by Business Today, amongst a host of other awards. And more recently, she also serves on the boards of companies like Century Textiles and Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail Limited as an independent director. That's a very short introduction to a very big profile that is Preeti. And what goes hand in hand with Preeti is her passion for design, is a passion for doing great work, and that's something that all of us at VGC share. VGC really came out of an idea that Preeti had to really change the landscape of building brands in this country. And 1997 was when we began. Some of us were still in school then, but through these years, we've been interacting with some of the brand stories, some of the communication, some of the work across design that VGC has done. So I'm happy to share my screen and take you through some of that, a very brief introduction to who we are before we get started. Here's a quick glimpse at some of our offices. As you can see, we love colors. We're bright, colorful people ourselves. And if you're ever in the neighborhood, please do drop by for a cup of coffee. And here's a quick look at some of the brands that we created. Of course, the video showed you a snapshot of some of that. In fact, this is just a short list of some of the most impactful brands that we've created, and some whom we're still associated with for many, many years. So now, jumping straight in to today's topic, the business of branding, continuity, and change. So what I'm going to be doing is leading this discussion with a few questions, and Preeti is going to then take over and share her perspective on this topic. So let's start with something simple. What is a brand?
That's a loaded question, Rahul. Well, what is a brand is for, definitely it's not a logo. That's what everybody thinks. In fact, I'm sure if you have a next slide on hand, what it is really about creating something which is really the company's most valuable asset. It's the way the company is perceived through its actions, through the experiences it creates, internally as well as externally. So really, when we say identity, it's really who we are. Brand identity is about understanding who we are, being faithful to the kind of experiences we are creating, such that we create, genuine perceptions and not just a superficial understanding of who we are, not just claims of who we are, but actually creating very sort of granular understanding of what your brand really stands for. That is really what makes a brand, a brand. And if you're consistent about it, it becomes a valuable asset. And I think this is what I really believe is a brand. So therefore, it's not the little real estate that sits on your visiting card as a logo, but it's experience that you create. Actually, Rahul, I think this is something that we often talk about, but can't dwell upon it enough. Brands are really, icebergs. What you see, the logo, the identity, some amount of communication, is, if you've done it right, is actually going to be a very small portion of what you are as a brand. You really first need to put into position the various things which are not visible to your external audience, which is understanding who you really are, what's your DNA, what's your vision, mission, what your values are, and truly so, not just something that sits on a plaque, Truly understanding what your products and services are, and what do they mean to people? What are you offering in terms of value through the products you're creating, the technology that's driving it, the kind of service values that you're creating, inculcating within, such that consumers will have a certain experience. These things are important. These things need to be thought through, and these things need to be aligned across an organization. What happens, therefore, is you're creating an internal culture which drives an external culture philosophy of what the customer experience should be. And what should be therefore the key messaging? What should be the tone of voice? What should be your positioning in the marketplace? And this should essentially drive your marketing. So whilst there are always sales imperatives and pressures, but if this is not in place, I'm afraid it then just goes into a very diffused area. So when you get this portion right, what you really then get is a very successful brand identity program.
So understanding what a brand is literally just the tip of the iceberg.
It really is literally the tip of the iceberg. So I think what we're really saying here is just essentially more of the same, that what are the if you're aligned with your internal brand philosophy, then you ensure that every individual in your company becomes a brand ambassador, and thereby what you create is an empathetic, sort of a service orientation. Why? Because as you can see, that most people love a brand because they have a friendly customer at the other end, an empathetic customer at the other end, and somebody who helps solve their issues and problems. It's a huge battle won if you get that right, And you need to understand that you must constantly protect your core customer, because these are the people who are going to make your brand viral, who are going to stay faithful to you, who are going to be your long-term customers, and going to help your growth in a very visceral way. Today, the kind of touch points you create, especially with the new generation, with the millennials, the Gen Z, it's very important that the messaging that you put out, the positioning that you take in the world is important to them. It aligns with their philosophy and positioning, because that's how you're going to be able to build a loyalty to your brands. So I think essentially net engagement policies are very, very important, but it needs to be rooted in something which is a dialogue. It's something that has to be transparent as well. That's what I think makes a good branding journey. So it's really how the world perceives you. That's very, very important. And this is also very important, is that you need to understand what is it that differentiates you. What is it that you want to be, which gives you nuances or outstanding virtues in some form or the other that's going to help you stand out.
So what VGC is building successful brands for a long, long time now. What does it take to make a successful brand, and how does one go about building one?
You like all journeys, there's a certain process, and this is something which I have believed in, and now, of course, as you know, Rahul, the organization believes in as well. We follow us. Our Designomics process is a 4-step process, and Designomics itself, the word that very deeply entrenched in the way I have personally approached design, and we have, as inculcated that as our core driving sort of philosophy is that good design means good business. And, you know, at the end of a good design process is a success story. And that's very, very important for people to understand, because design is not just a craft-based, aesthetic-oriented sort of, you know, project. It is actually a business, it's a management tool, and therefore it helps solving business issues. It must be understood as that. You know, whilst I say business, it could be all kinds of parameters. I mean, we could take it into a social context. We could take it into a governance context. You know, if you want to have a certain objective delivered, be it business or be it social or cultural, it needs to be understood as something which has to deliver results. And if you work therefore backwards from that, and as you know, we actually believe in design thinking so much, and this is really at the core sort of philosophy of Designomics. It's very, very important that we embrace that. And I know we all know, and you mentioned this also, that I believe in it so much, you're so passionate about it that I actually have curated a program to talk about Designomics. Why? Because it's important that businesses understand the importance of design. Designers understand the importance of design. You know, so I don't want to be an evangelist for designers. I want to be an evangelist for people, business houses, for the nation to embrace design. After all, look at countries like Japan, you know, or Netherlands. You know, they have embraced the importance of design, and it turned around their economies. You know, I mean, Japan is a fantastic story of design, where they actually embraced the power of design in the early 50s. You can imagine how enlightened that was. You know, so when you can base a nation's economy on design thinking, and you know, and values that design bring in, you can imagine what it can do for a business. So that's where, as you know, we launched this you know, leadership platform and awards platform and so on.
Could you walk us through the 4-step process that we follow?
I'll do it, yeah, quickly, because I'm sure otherwise we'll run out of time. So, you know, I think immersion for us is very important. What I mean by immersion is that you need to take a deep dive in what the business is all about. We need to understand how the business thinks about itself, how its competition thinks about itself. What is the marketplace talking about? What are the trends, and what are the what is it that the business wants to become in the future? You know, so we actually do a lot of business immersion, a lot of research, and a lot of understanding. We do a lot of listening to internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. And sometimes we end up even challenging perceptions from internal stakeholders as well, because if there's an external perception which is vastly different from that of an internal stakeholder, then we would like to table that as well. Then what this does is it creates fantastic insights about what the brand's DNA is, and what are the insights that we can build a strategy around. You know, and then when we come to that phase of, you know, mining those insights and actually, you know, understanding what the strategic positioning should be, which is something which you can embrace for a very, very long time, can own it for a very long time, that becomes our brand strategy. And that helps us create, the strategy toolkit helps us create the visual design toolkit. So that's when the manifestation of what the brand should look like, what should be its visual expression, what it should do, what it should not do, and essentially create an environment of the design expression that should deliver the fundamental purpose of this task. You know? And once that is done, then it's a question of then rolling it out, learning about what's going to work, what's not going to work, much like the design thinking process. And you know, then that becomes the toolkit for future expression of brand communication. You know, now when I say brand communication, it could be across everything. It could be an environment, it could be the packaging, it could be a customer interface, it could be advertising, it could be the digital expression of the brand, all of that. So this is really a 4-step process, and this is really an intelligent way of understanding what the businesses require, and therefore creating intelligent solutions for it from a design perspective. You know,
so you said good design is good business. Could you take us through how we've applied the process through an example or two, and essentially coming back to the topic at hand, how do we address continuity and change in the context of branding, especially for a brand that's been around for a long time?
Actually, continuity and change applies to pretty much all kind of brand journeys, especially, of course, the ones which have been around for a while. What I mean by continuity and change is that there is a certain brand context which has existed in a definite, in a certain defined past. It could be a few years ago, it could be decades ago, it could be a century ago. And how do you then carry forward the brand's story, the brand journey? You carry it forward. You could help it form different forms and shapes and narratives. And what actually drives those changes? These are important things. And most importantly, what I want to touch upon here is that brands are never nouns. Actually, brands are verbs. And therefore, the process of designing a brand is not a static one. It's not something that they've designed a logo and therefore your job is done. Anyone who's creating a brand, and especially the ones who are buying a branding a project from a designer, should understand that it's not therefore a finite thing. It is constantly moving, and you will need to shift shapes almost in a changing scenario. Now, I think what I want to talk about is the oldest brand that we have in our basket, which is Aditya Birla Group. And in a nutshell, of course, it is an iconic brand. We've been with it for over 2 decades, I would say over 25 years. We've seen it through 3 brand avatars, and I would say I'm personally very proud because I've actually seen the brand grow from position of strength to strength, and we continue to be brand custodians for Aditya Birla Group. And I think that what I want to talk about is that, and feel free to, Rahul, keep rolling the slides because I'll just keep telling the story, is that, when we started out the process in 1996, Aditya Birla Group as a brand did not exist. Birlas existed, and various companies existed, But at that point in time, the current chairman, Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla, took over and said, I would like to create an overall brand mark, which is like an umbrella mark for all the individual group companies. It's very interesting because it's a case of the tail wagging the dog. All these companies sort of already existed, and now we've been asked to herd them together and create a mark which can somehow encapsulate, sort of enclose them in a certain aura, a certain brand aura, which was Aditya Birla Group. So whenever somebody asks for a brand change, there is almost always a strategy shift within the company. That's the way I have always understood it, and that's what we as VGC also practice. Is that there's a need for a change because there is a strategy shift. Things are either moving in a different direction or scaling up in a certain direction, or a combination of both. So therefore, it becomes important to understand those changes in order to give a brand mark which will suit their purposes and give them the kind of success that they're looking for in their brand journey. So there has to be a certain, therefore, we saw in the 4-step process an immersion, an internal alignment of understanding what is the vision, the philosophy. In this case, the key custodian would be the chairman, as well as other senior stakeholders. So it would be very, very important to understand that, but also equally was at that point in time when we took on this exercise, also to understand the group, the perception of not the group because it didn't exist, but Birla as a name, how it existed, not just in India, but across the world. And amongst, at that point in time, we had outlined the key stakeholders being investors and shareholders. And so conducting this kind of a research became very, very important, Of course, then came the mining the insights and so on, and then essentially taking those insights and then creating the brand, designing the brand idea itself, And so then the idea was that this umbrella brand would become a mark of a virtual brand. So Aditya Birla Group itself does not create any products or create any services. Individual companies do. But at the same time, it has the potential of creating a fantastic aura around the corporate, infusing the individual companies with the corporate vision, and also scaling up in a statesman perspective, which a brand like Aditya Birla Group can do and has done. So I think that this immersion phase gave us an idea of what it should really stand for. And of course, it was to be a global powerhouse, to be firm, and at the same time, firmly rooted in our legacy. We do not want to divorce from our legacy. So here is, a continuity and change. We want to continue our legacy and at the same time be relevant to a modern era. So it's very important that the company says that, we really want to be amongst the best. We will want to be amongst the top 3 in the world, not just in India. This was something which was laid down very early on in the brand's journey. And when we did the research, as I mentioned, amongst investors in India and all over the world, interesting things came up. And we were seen as big, which was, to me, to us, it was a very important thing, because you were big, of a certain sort of size, of a scale, you were trusted. You're an Indian brand, which we never saw as something which was a weakness. But at the same time, we were seen as somewhat inaccessible, and therefore the value that was unfortunately associated was that we therefore not transparent. And when they did not understand us, they would see us as maybe an old-fashioned company where we do not back innovations and so on, and therefore products that we would be offering would be of average quality. So these, we thought, in our brand journey, we would have to correct. 2, being an approachable, energetic, and competitive brand, far more relevant to the times that we would be living in. So this sort of, so this is really who we are. We are a virtual group with holdings and parts that are powerful. A lot of the companies already listed and highly successful, and to help engineer a process of change through consensus. So at the corporate, so this actually internally also created a lot of shifts. So within the corporate itself. So this was great, because it was nice that a design thinking process could actually ignite a lot of interesting shifts within the corporate's overall thinking. And then going ahead from there, what we said was that we definitely want to be seen as an Indian multinational. We definitely want to inspire shareholder confidence. We definitely want to attract the highest quality talent that's out there, establish the group as a responsible global citizen, and thereby transform the group into a high-value corporate brand. This was really the agenda that was charted out. And therefore, what should be our brand mark? Now, we understand the DNA of a client, we understand the legacy that we stand for, and we understand what we want to become in terms of what should the brand philosophy be in terms of a mark that can hold us good in years to come. So we took the word Aditya itself, which means the sun, as most of you would know. And the sun stands for everything positive. It also touches base with the legacy, which is the founder, Mr. Aditya Birla himself. And therefore, it was a happy sort of happenstance that we actually, came upon this mark. And when we married the rendition, this is what we got. So, which is the sun. This is the first mark that we did in 1996. And so the internals, the spokes of the sun, are actually the companies, and the external ones are what we're radiating out. The sun stands for, as I said, dynamism and constant renewal. And the DNA of the company is that of a lot of rich legacy, which is why we have a logo. We continue to have a logo which shows rich dynamic colors touching base with the fire element, which stands for dynamism. So then we created the brand architecture, where the individual companies lead from the top because they've all existed before. We come in as an endorser brand with the sun, and in small we say Aditya Birla Group. So, and then of course the entire brand identity process and identifying which vision, mission, values, communicating internally and externally, working with the HR teams to manifest various initiatives. And what was then our communication strategy was that we need to first create awareness of who we are. Then we need to make people understand that reason why they should believe that this is who we are, this is what we stand for, is because this is what we do, and thereby move to the next level, which is that we build relationships with our customers, with our consumers, and bring value to the relationship. So in the first instance itself, what we did was, let's talk about who we are, which is that we're an Indian multinational. And this we're talking about in early days, India has graduated into an open economy. The license Raj is in the recent past, and we want to be seen as architects of a new India. And so this is really what we did. And we said, therefore, I think we have a film here, Rahul? Yep. So this is what we said, and the only thing we said was we're an Indian multinational and that we have taken India to the world. It's a moment of pride, it's a moment of national pride. And this is a position we own for a very long time.
taking India to the world.
So we made sure that our narrative was essentially at a group level was just going to be talking about the fact that we are an Indian multinational, And when we did our research at that point, post that communication, we found that all of our parameters for shifts that we wanted were all met in spades. Our unaided recall went up. We were seen as one of the most trusted brands. We were seen as amongst the big, remember, Aditya Birla Group is at that point in time just about 10 years old. And yet we're rubbing shoulders with very large corporates. And as I said, that trusted brand as a multinational, all our perceptions went all in the right buckets. So I think that we were all very, very proud of the journey that we had taken, and we stayed with that journey. And one of the things that I want to talk about here is that every brand journey has to be consistent. And we have stayed consistent with our design language, even in terms of the communication, because you saw a certain serial style, you stayed faithful to the serial style throughout. If we have taken a position, then we stay with the positioning for a certain amount of time for it to be deeply entrenched. Going forward, we said that we want to talk now about the fact that we have now become a super brand. Within 10 years, we were seen as a brand of great national value, and internally as well as externally, there was a greater understanding of what Aditya Birla Group as a brand was stand for. New companies within the group wanted to be called Aditya Birla. So that's the kind of shifts that started to happen. And we said, can we take this equity and move ahead? We've been seen as architects of a global India, but now we want to be seen as a powerhouse across the globe and across sectors. Let's educate people about what we do. People know now that we are Aditya Birla Group. They don't know enough about what we do. So we then set forth with a whole new branding exercise, which became a stronger mark. It was a brand refreshment, not a completely new mark. So from here, we went to this, which is stronger, brighter, bolder, and most importantly, the brand architecture change. So in the earlier brand architecture, we had the individual companies leading from the top, and we were an endorser line, whereas now, because of the strength we had gained as a brand, we led from the top. And in fact, it was a small shift, but it was actually a very, very big step from a corporate branding perspective. So this was quite a big achievement that we did, and then of course led into a whole brand expression, design language, and so on. And then we said, let's focus on the various sectors. So then we created a whole brand focus and communication around what we do.
Aditya Birla Group, taking India to the world.
So I think moving quickly ahead, we then, the groups have evolved at unprecedented rate from 2 billion to 41 billion. It became far more youthful, then of course it became also from a predominantly B2B business orientation to one of India's largest consumer facing conglomerates. So we said that now is the time to actually shift gears and move to another brand milestone. And we created a third and a rather radical shift for the group. So we still are the sun, but we are different. This is our latest brand mark, which is out there at the moment, as you will see. And therefore, we actually seen the brand journey across 3 brand shifts in over 2 decades. And then, of course, it's the typical the design language, the announcements, the internal announcements. Very important to talk into internal announcements as well, so that every member of the organization is aligned to the vision and sees as owns the vision and is able to contribute to the vision. And I think then we said that it's really now important to talk about the fact that we are, the journey is now about scale, how we are big in your life. So this is a shift from now saying, taking India to the world, that we are in a sense all pervasive. And I think that that part of the communication is what we embrace. Rahul, it's really about saying that we are in a sense omnipresent.
From being in every second can in the world, to shaping automobiles, from securing futures to empowering over 6 million dreams, from connecting the world to enabling over 1 billion conversations a day, from building your homes to the highways that get you there, from styling your wardrobe every 3 seconds to bringing you the world of fashion. We are a big part of your life because we know every small moment is big for you. Aditya Birla Group, big in your life.
And I think the next step, Rahul, I think, which is very important, is that what value are we bringing to? Yes, we are big. Yes, we're international. But what is the value that we bring to people and the planet? And I think that is really where the next shift happens. So now the brand journey continues to a new version of bringing value to people's lives in the next level of brand communication that we're doing.
A vision becomes a milestone when it helps make our lives richer with love and laughter. When it helps make a cleaner, smarter, and a more beautiful planet. So that you can set off on joyous new journeys and adventures. Building stronger bonds and bridging impossible distances, which take you from the ever new to the forever beautiful. Opening up vistas and windows to a vibrant new world. A vision becomes a milestone when it touches millions of lives every single day. Aditya Birla Group, big
I think that
in your life.
What's interesting is that whilst we've done all this work for the group, the journey that's going on right now, and I think Rahul, to quickly just talk a little bit about that, is that the kind of audiences we're talking to. Do we have slides about that? That what are the kind of shifts that we have made?
Yeah.
That today, that there was a time when the narratives were complete, when we only spoke, when we just had a television campaign or a print campaign and a billboard. But I think the world is changing quite a lot. So whereas this is a rather linear, simplistic story, now brands have to navigate a far more complex landscape, which is the fact that, there's external communication, there is internal communication, of course, there are multiple business initiatives, there's an innovation pipeline, sustainability, social impact stories, mainline advertising, branded content, social media stories, and of course, to whom? To an extremely diverse audience through different kind of media. So if you're talking about I don't know if we have the audience part of the story here, but I mean, we are talking to, whereas earlier it was just, essentially the baby boomers or the Gen X, and largely confined to that. The media was rather, as we mentioned, the avenues of communication were rather limited. But soon, and I think very, very important, the millennials started this journey, and we now into very much getting into the Gen Z orientation, is that these audiences are very, very different. They are not looking at a linear world. They're looking not only at a multifarious world, but they're also looking at a world which takes positions, which has a philosophy, takes a stand, and also, of course, that all of these verticals of audiences coexist, which means that gone are the days where you will tell one story that fits all audiences. You would have to tailor-make your stories. And that's a very, very important shift that we are now embracing for the next level of communication for Aditya Birla Group itself. So the point here is that this continuity of the brand legacy is fundamental philosophy is there is also embracing change. And therefore, as I mentioned, all brands are verbs and need to be dynamic, need to stay intelligent and relevant across the board in an increasingly complex world.
Eye on the clock. This is something that we've been hearing increasingly, ESG, environmental, societal, social society and governance. How are brands embracing this concept? And also, we've also been hearing a lot about brands becoming woke in today's day and age. So could you elaborate a little bit on this?
So I think this is also a lot to do with a huge shift that has happened in a kind of a consumer consciousness, where ESG is about the environment. How are brands contributing the environment? So sustainability is very, very important to people who are consuming brands because they would rather align with a brand which stands for something. So sustainability is important to our audiences. Of course, it's important to the planet itself, but to our audiences, it's important. Governance is important because that is the fundamental ethics upon which you are positioning your business. So governance is of course important, and the social value that you bring, to the environment that you're in. So that's where the corporate social responsibility portion becomes very important. And all of these things are, in a sense, getting increasingly integrated. There are businesses which are coming into the world which are based on this. It's not something that I will embrace as an add-on, that I will do some CSR, or I will only do, I will do something for the planet as well. But brands are birthing themselves in that. So that is a very important thing. And what are woke brands is that brands which are aware and are also equally consciousness driven, So they are aligned with what the consumers want. So for example, 64% of millennials worldwide are belief-driven buyers. 81% of Indian consumers want companies to take a stand which is rooted in social, cultural, environmental, political issues. I mean, we see so much out there in social media where certain brands are lifted or certain brands are trashed because of their wrong optics, So this has become a very, very important narrative for all brands and all brand designers to understand as well.
So in a sense, ESG is kind of interwoven with how woke a brand is in today's day and age.
Yes, absolutely.
We've heard a lot about design thinking, and I'm sure the audience here also is quite aware about it. But what role does design thinking play in branding or rebranding?
So design thinking was something which is, if you could move to
process?
Yeah, it's essentially about, it's a human-centered process. Now, you might think that isn't that the most obvious thing? It is the most obvious thing, but actually it is the least, it's a process which was followed the least until very recently. What it is that it puts empathy into the center of everything. And empathy is important because who is your target audience and what is it? If you put aside your business for a moment and understand that if I am, for example, selling something for the elderly, okay, and if I actually, without first figuring out, okay, this is my product and this is how I should sell it, now let me research the product. I want to research the fundamental need for the product. Is it what use is this to my end consumer? What is the consumer's lifestyle? What value is it bringing to the consumer? And when you do that, amazing and interesting insights come out, which means that your product or the service itself might go through a certain kind of metamorphosis if you do that, and gives you a greater chance at having a more successful idea. So when you do this, what you have is fantastic insights, which then define the next, what are actually the needs as opposed to what are the perceived needs of this group of people. What you do then is take those insights and you brainstorm. And this is very important that, as designers, and of course, not just designers, but even businesses, and this is not just restricted to designers. It is essentially a process which is now embraced by corporates as well. So then you ideate, and multiple ideas, many ideas are welcome, and wilder the ideas are welcome, because this is the time you should do that. From which then you prototype, then from which you say, these are likely to succeed, test, and then you start testing it out. So this is really a 5-step process, which is design thinking. And as you know, this is what Designomics is based on. And this is something which is very important for designers and consumers of design processes also to embrace.
It's more about getting to the root of the problem, and instead of assuming what the problem really is.
Exactly. So yeah, go on.
This is,
How
this
is
is
the world?
actually an interesting one. The world is evolving, and we hear terms like metaverse, NFTs every single day in the news on Instagram. Nike recently launched a pair of sneakers in the metaverse that cost close to $1,000 or a little more, if I'm not mistaken. And people are buying. You can't really wear them, but your virtual avatar can wear them. Forever 21 has launched virtual shops. We've seen Facebook change its name to Meta. Big companies like Adidas are betting big, and we've at the same time we've also seen this non-fungible tokens, this movement really taking off in the West. This is an example of the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT collection, about 10,000 odd unique apes, as they like to call it, and each one of them retails for about now close to $100,000 or so, if I'm not mistaken. So while the West is moving in this direction, how do you see Indian brands evolving to sort of go into the metaverse, go into the future, and what's in store for us?
So I think that thus far everything that I've said is the reality of the brand environment that we're living in now. But what this is a brave new world. It's a brave new future. And in a sense, internationally, whilst people have embraced it, and as you showed in the slide before, all of these brands are actually now creating virtual experiences and trading virtually. And of course, in the root of all of this is, of course, a whole new currency, the cryptocurrency. Whilst all of this is true and very, very real, brands are still internationally even just wading through it to see where they're going to go. Typically in India, Rahul, brands mimic the West. We are yet not as digitally savvy as a business environment as the West are, and we have seen how brands need much more convincing in terms of the kind of narratives that they have to tell. So we are still laggards in that sense in digitally. Although everybody's embraced it, they're not quite leveraging it. So this is something which I feel definitely will happen, because if you won't change, then change is thrust upon you, and it will happen. Where and how it's going to manifest, I think that is something where the jury is still out, internationally as well, and certainly for India. But this is our future. So definitely we have to think very actively about it. And we as brand builders have to think very actively about it as well.
In closing, we've got a group of young brand builders, brand designers, and brand strategists here. So any words of advice from your years of experience in both leading VGC as well as before that, as to how you can get into the business of branding and how you can build successful brands?
So I think that at the root of all of this is be humble, be hungry as hell, be passionate, learn just about everything. Just because I studied design and I was a designer, it didn't stop me from understanding and learning so many different things, And I think that when you have an attitude, a learner's attitude, you are going to keep your doors open for all kinds of influences. Don't just talk to your community, because that's an incestuous club. It's very important to see what's going on in the world, not just things which are associated with you, but understand what is happening in the political world, in the cultural world, in the spiritual world, and not just in India, all over. Take a stand, have a position in life. And these are very, very important things. So this is not for a minute am I saying you should be divorced from your craft. Very important to be immersed in the latest techniques of crafting, and wherever that takes you, whether it's static, printing, graphics, animation, wherever it takes you, you must go, because your brands, you are the ones who are, as mentors of your brands that you want to handle, you're going to take those brands over there. So add richness to yourself as individuals. It will start showing into the work that you do as well. So that is, I think, in a nutshell, what I want to say.
Thank you, Preeti. I think with that, I will hand this over to Nandini to take it from here.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Rahul and Preeti. A lot of insights. I've been making furious notes. Thank you so much for that. I will quickly introduce Ashok Pawa for his for his two pieces as well on this. So Ashok Pava is a business manager at HP Indigo, specifically focused on India and Sri Lanka. His career in printing technology spans nearly 2 decades, where he has been associated with companies like Technova, Xerox, and now HP. Owing to his industry experience, he has a deep understanding of designers' pain points and their needs with respect specifically to print and print design and the innovative possibilities of print technology. So I'd like to invite Ashok to please share his thoughts as well.
Sure. Thank you, Srini, and Preeti and Rahul. Thank you so very much. It was so insightful for me. I was going through each word which was falling into my ear to absorb it and lock it in whatever space I had in my brain. Right. And trust me, I would love to embrace it what you have just said. And being a part of this industry, as you rightly said, brand is something which is very different from most of the time what we think. We are not the the tip of the iceberg. We are deep inside the water. And that's where I want to make this statement also. When we say HP, people see us as a laptop, the workstation company. And when it comes to HP Indigo, we are a slightly different company. We are a slightly different brand. And why we are here today is something maybe most of the seniors here are wondering. So I will just give a small check onto my presentation slide if you can see.
Yes.
Okay, great. So taking over from VGC, I would say they are expert in the business of branding. And we definitely is a part of the whole journey, the design thinking that Preeti has just spoken about. And that's where we have come to this one more statement adding to the business of branding is that the world leading brands, they love HP Indigo. And why we say that, because we also work with a lot of the global brands on the way, the whole of the community which is present in this webinar works with most of the brands. You can see the brands on automotive, cosmetics, food and beverages, and retail. Now, the question is, how come HP Indigo is coming into this play of engaging with the brands, and what are the values that we are kind of delivering here? Is I would say that in the design thinking process, we saw one thing which is called as an ideate or an ideation. This is what we come into the picture, and that's where we work with the various agencies, the creative agencies, and the brands, and we actually do a lot of brainstorming on the ideation part of it. I'll explain it to a little further, but I'll give you some of the case studies that we have done in the last 2 decades, I would put it this way. I'll take one by one of the case studies so that we can see the values that we are bringing onto the table today. So let me take one example of a food and beverages industry. We always say that there is always a challenge, whether it's a simple or a complex challenge, which is put across to world. So this was a challenge which was given to us by a company called Coke, right? And the challenge was, the statement was create a significant consumer experience, an extraordinary product in your hands, unique in the whole world. And why this statement was, why this challenge was given to us, because the millennial, the generation which is becoming a consumer of almost all the product, including the beverages, was staying away from from the cool drinks. They wanted to move to the health drink, and that's where this the big brand of the world wanted to come and connect with the millennials to to share the brand experience to them. I'll share a video now, and then we'll look into the whole story, what we did and how we did it.
We at Diet Coke believe that each one of us is unique. That in each one of us, you can find that special something that is extraordinary. This is the essence of our brand. We have decided to make an innovative marketing move and replace our branded bottles designs with millions of unique and different looks. Millions of one-of-a-kind bottles. All bottles, in all sizes. Each one is unique. No other bottle in the world looks the same. In order to make our consumers feel extraordinary each time they drink a Diet Coke, we've developed a revolutionary technology. A special algorithm gave the printers the ability to think like a designer and create countless and different amazing designs, which were printed on all the bottles. Millions of designs. Millions of bottles. The launch of the campaign was followed by hundreds of billboard ads. Each billboard looked different. At point of sale, we gave our consumers branded gifts printed with the same designs as appeared on their bottles. We flooded the TV with a groovy spot and a pop-up commercial every time there was an extraordinary performance on The Voice show. The campaign created a huge buzz on the social media and even on eBay. the results were also extraordinary. We gave our consumers the actual feeling of extraordinary by bringing our brand's values to life.
Wow. So this is what we did. So when this challenge was actually given to us, the whole idea was starting with, can we create a unique bottle of a Coke with a unique number that can be given to a consumer, which they say, this is my bottle, this is unique to me. And that's where HP came into picture, and we created a beautiful algorithm. This algorithm, what actually does is, out of that, we call it as a base design. There are some 15 base designs, and this algorithm creates a unique design out of the base design in millions. In this case, we actually did 2 millions of a unique design. But again, for brand, the outcome is more important. So they get 23% of the brand preference increased by this campaign. And of course, the bigger objective is the revenue is a 2.1% sales increase. So this is where, I would say the co-creation or the collaboration between an HP Indigo and the design agency and the brand comes into picture and give a holistic solution to a challenge statement which is given to us. And this was done in Israel. And then of course, when we had this much of an encouraging result, the whole of the campaign was actually taken to many of the countries around the world. This was done in US. The change, the name was changed. The campaign was changed from unique or an extraordinary to it's mine. It's much more belongingness that actually was given to the whole campaign. The campaign remained the same, but here, what was the most important was the base design was created or inspired by the bubbles, fizz, and the taste and the spirit of a Diet Coke. And there were 36 base design, and out of those 36 base design, what we created was 16 million unique design. Yes, 36 base design to 16 million of unique design. And that's where the whole of the journey started, with this unique or an extraordinary, the concept of the design. And then, of course, it is, taken by, I would say it is exploited by many of the other brands in the other part of the world as well for their limited launch, for their special editions, to get a, absolutely beautiful shelf appeal on a in-store display. So that was one of the campaign, which was done for a Coke. Now, then, we, as I said, it's not only one. In food and beverages, we work with many brands, and this was another idea which came into picture. Is how do we engage with with audience or customers and create an experience, especially on the first day of the new year, which is the New Year resolution, right? And this is where we again came into play, and we work with the Nescafe as a brand. And what we did is we printed 300, the most common 300 resolutions on a coffee jar, on a label of a coffee jar. And what it does is, when actually first thing in the morning is, what you do is you drink coffee or tea or a coffee. And the moment you actually take out this coffee bottle is what your resolution reminds you. So the study which was done by agency was that more is the reminder of that resolution, longer it stays. And this was the whole essence of this this one particular campaign. Again, I'll not play the video just in the interest of time. The one more example that I'm taking here is one more, level up, where this brand really wanted to give a beautiful experience on the tea sachets with the personalized messages which a consumer wanted. Right. This is, as I said, from 300 resolution, now it was one message which I want. And for this, we actually, took this challenge and created a online interface which actually helps consumer to go to the website, and they put their their message, and the whole of the tea sachet which was printed is actually delivered it to them. Now this is a consumer engagement story, but on the other side, the essence for the brand was this personalized pack was actually sold at a €5 instead of 1.6 euros is a regular part of the brand, which means consumer definitely wants to pay little more, or a big more extra for the personalized experience that they look forward from that one particular brand. So this is an essence of this this story. Now, going from the food and beverages brand to cosmetics, and we all know that when it comes to cosmetics, removing the the cosmetics from the face is something which is a big business, and this is what this brand from the other part of the world wanted to show. It's called as a Neutrogena Deep Clean, and they wanted to launch this one particular cleaner. And what they did is, as I said, they put a challenge saying that it is always good if consumer try test this sample on their own, and then the trust is building onto the brand, and they go to the retail or online and buy this brand. And what was done, at the end was there was a magazine cover which was printed with the special inks, and this Neutrogena deep clean tissue was applied along with the magazine. And what consumer could do is take the wipe out, put it on the magazine cover, and they could see that dust, dirt, and the ink coming out from the magazine cover. So this was like your makeup coming out from your face when you are using it as a deep cleaner. And this has created a huge impact onto the sales and the experience and the trust, which Preeti was talking about. Creating that experience is something which was very innovatively, done here and experimented here. Now, going from cosmetics, definitely, we will talk about some of the emerging, the retails which is coming up in India as well. And this is a category which is growing up very fast. And we all know that, the loyalty coupons, the discount coupons is something which is very, very phenomenally widely used by many brands, but they feel it's not that powerful. So this one particular retail company, again, came back and say, we definitely want to give the loyalty coupon, but we want the footfall to come to our store. How do we do that? And that's where we said, okay, if this is the objective, what we can do is we give them this coupon, but at the end of the day, the whole of the big idea behind this discounting can only be experienced in the retail center. And that's where the whole of the discount was printed with invisible ink, and that could be experienced once somebody wants to encash this coupon. They have to come to the store under the UV light. This whole idea is experienced by the user, and they get the loyalties or the discounts and whatever promos that is given to them. Again, the similar kind of an experience to build more brand and trust. And this is very interesting, which is Preeti has said, sometimes the objectives are slightly different. Sometimes it can be the societal objectives, or what is the value that you are bringing to the society today. When brand matures to the level, definitely they start thinking of the values that as a brand they are giving back to the society. And this is where Kleenex also came into picture, and they wanted to associate with the grandmoms or grandmothers, right, who could never go to the school before. But finally, at an age of 70, 80, 90, they could go to the school. They could learn, the language. It was in Korea, and then they wrote the poems. And the stories of these grandmoms or the poets are actually printed on the Kleenex, the tissue, the outer cover, and it was spread across the whole Korea about the values that the Kleenex is bringing, which means we are there with you at every phase, at every part of your life. This was the whole value which was brought again by by the Kleenex. And last but not the least, in the interest of time, definitely, there are much more iconic brand, personal brand, or the corporate brand which was available. Sometimes they want to come together and create some new projects. And this is a beautiful example of how the co-creation or a collaboration come into picture when those ideations from a big iconic brands wants to come together and work together to create some beautiful experience. So I'll show the video to you, and then we'll speak about this as well.
Hi, I'm Will Thacker.
Hi, I'm Blake Waters.
We're both creatives at Leo Burnett's.
We're just looking at photos of the Queen on TV, I think, and we just noticed that the Queen seems to only wear one colour. We realised it's always the case, it never really changes. And then, so we just thought it'd be quite funny if we actually made like just a whole scale of colours. We actually had to go onto the old internet and scour a ridiculous amount of images, just trying to find through the years, through these 60 years, all these different colours and places where she wore them. And what we did in the end, Pantone, they actually found us the right colour reference. So this is Pantone 154421. And then she wore it in Southampton Docks in 2010. And we've got 60 of them in this lovely little book.
It's a lovely little piece in the end, and we're really, really happy with it. And everyone that sees it is like, where can I get one from?
I was approached here at Leo Burnett's 2 weeks before the Diamond Jubilee with a great concept of a Pantone swatch of the Queen's 60 years in colour. The challenge for us was to actually create a swatch book which featured 60 different coloured outfits as worn by the Queen. And we worked very closely with Pantone on this project. They introduced us to the possibility of a 7-colour print process, which would actually allow us to achieve more colours than the standard 4-colour process.
We wanted to find a data merge process of getting those numbers in quickly, and then we could look at the design and the kerning, but also with this image, of finding a way to take one image, remove all the colour from it, and then have an area that we could just colour up individually every single time.
Hi, I'm Paul Graham. I'm Pantone Sales Director in EMEA. We were delighted to be able to support the Queen's Diamond Jubilee with this fun and interesting project. Pantone guides are normally printed on a specially modified split-duct offset press, printing 28 spot colours simultaneously at our production plant in New Jersey. When we looked at this project, it was clear that given the short run length and very tight timescale, it had to be digitally printed on an HP Indigo 7-colour press.
I'm Gary Peeling, I'm Managing Director of Precision Printing in London in the UK. We were approached by Leo Burnett, HP and Pantone about the project, and obviously coming up to Jubilee Week, we were very excited to be involved. Quite unique in the fact that we had two iconic brands involved, Her Majesty and also Pantone. For my working life, Pantone has really been the cornerstone of colour control. Only a very limited number of these books are being printed, and therefore the process had to be digital. We've worked very closely with the creative team at Leo Burnett, the technical teams at HP and at Pantone to make sure the representation is exactly as good as we can possibly get it. The limited number of copies are being hand-numbered, so I can see this becoming a big collector's item in years to come. And my understanding, which is a real thrill to us here at Precision, is that Her Majesty will be presented one too.
Well, so this is you know, I would say this is how we work and this is what we work. I'm sorry if yes. So this is what we work. So we actually work as a as an agency for end-to-end solutions that a brand needs, whether it is from the color side, technical side, design side, and then of course at the end the execution happens on the digital print part of it. I will leave some of the examples where the BMWs and Audis and the Zipcar of the world are using HP Indigo's technology to print. Now I'll put one more perspective here. This is what we are doing with the brands. So brand love HP Indigo, but why do the brand love HP Indigo? Of course, there are a few reasons that the brand love HP Indigo, and this is what summarizes of the brand needs today and how we play a critical role in terms of fulfilling those needs of the brand. So today the brand, as Preeti has said, it's a complex space or a marketplace where the brand is operating today, especially when it comes from Gen Z, Gen Y, all those new age consumers which are coming into space, the new medias which is coming into play. A brand definitely look forward for something which is more engagement with the consumer, more return on their marketing investment. Definitely they want to cut cost. Optimization of the supply chain is the many of the time this is the objective which is put across to us. Connect the digital campaign with the real product, which means the multiverse that we are talking about, connecting so many technologies together to that experience. A reduced time to market. This market has become very dynamic. And last is, be responsible, be eco-friendly. And that's where digital printing comes into picture. And in this digital printing, HP Indigo comes into picture. And why brand says, we love HP Indigo is because of the print quality, the versatility of the medias or the papers that we have, and of course, the unique feature that we spoke about the extraordinary campaign. So in the last, I would play one more last video, which talks about why brand love HP Indigo. And this is what we do.
As you turn the page of today and find yourself in that moment of anticipation of what awaits you on the other side of tomorrow, what will help you grow, stay ahead, and make a brilliant impact on the landscape of print? One thing is certain, the pages of tomorrow will be printed by HP Indigo technology. It all starts with 2 microns of unlimited potential. These encapsulated pigment particles form HP Indigo electro inks. Their unique structure makes them pigment agnostic, enabling you to print with the largest variety of colors, inks, and Pantone's digital printing has ever seen. When you press print, a laser array composes your image as an invisible electrostatic field on the photo imaging plate. This operation provides a roadmap for the electrified inks and has been scientifically engineered for razor-sharp accuracy, allowing each particle to be attracted to where it belongs and away from where it doesn't. The precisely placed electro ink is then transferred in direct contact onto a heated blanket, which melts the pigment-carrying particles into a smooth film. With every color separation, this thermal offset process is repeated, laying down a perfect tapestry of electro ink until your image is fully developed. The blanket then applies the single layer film to your media in one piece, already dry, and custom tailored to match every contour on the surface of your substrate, from coated paper to metallized to canvas. Because the electro inks have been transferred in direct contact at every step, the result is unmatched, and neither coverage nor substrate have any effect on quality, even at the highest speeds. HP PrintOS is enabling thousands of customers to grow their businesses through a cloud-based platform that simplifies and automates production. And you can put your mind at ease knowing that all HP Indigo presses are engineered with the environment in mind to reduce waste, provide safe inks, and minimize your energy consumption. HP Indigo technology carries you into the next chapter of digital printing, one that isn't bound by gamut, coverage, substrate, or speed. One that gives you the agility to deliver the shortest runs at the highest quality, from business cards and direct mail, to photo books and publishing, to folding cartons and flexible packaging. In white and fluorescent, on black and metallic, on the shelves and in our homes, the profit of tomorrow will be printed by HP Indigo technology.
So this is the reason that we have, this is the technology that we have. That's where we say that, brands are really looking forward with us. Now, in the last, I would, put a humble request to all of you is that we are open to, ideate many other technologies that can help brand to either connect with the right audience or do a, the right experience to their end customers, brand communication. If you have any such project or a brand with you, please reach out to us, and we are happy to collaborate and work with all the new budding designers which are available in this show today. And with this, thank you so much, everyone, for your patience listening. Nandini, over to you, please.
Thank you so much for so much insight into the printing world, Ashok. And since we're actually running out of time, we would need to close the Q&A section, but we will be responding to all your questions. We have been getting quite a few questions from you all, so we'll be personally sending responses to those. And Rahul has been really nice and kind enough to, on the side, respond to the other Q&A answers. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, Preeti. Thank you, Rahul. It was a wonderful, wonderful, very insightful session. I made a lot of notes and I actually had my own questions that I'll probably ask you all offline. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope this was a session where you all learned a lot and you all found very, very insightful. Thank you and goodbye.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ashok, and thanks, Abhishek. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. It was great. It was a great session, and we hope to have some many more.